y'all? It's Sawyer. I just wanted to hop on here and tell you guys a little update on the Gen Free podcast. We have changed how we're going to be cutting up the camera angles. We are now going to be changing camera angles live from behind our desk setup while the podcast is going on, and I'll no longer be doing it in editing after the fact. So it's just going to make it easier on us, and hopefully as we get into it and get used to doing it, it's going to make it better overall for you guys as well. But I also just wanted to hop on here and say this episode is about gaming and our passions surrounding gaming as well as our convictions around it. But I just wanted to hop on here and say that we've had in our dream vault for a long time doing a gaming channel, but also having like board games or other styles of content where we're just having fun. Just let us know if you would be interested in that. We would have multiple members of the Faith Like Birds team, like me and Ayanna, Brian, and even Will Hart wants to be involved. Just let us know if you would be interested in that. Comment down below and let us know. All right. Later, guys. Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome to the Gen Free podcast. This week, we have kicked Ayanna out. She is no longer here. And this episode is the boys episode, and we're talking about video games. And if you don't play video games, stick around, because we're also going to be talking about God and Jesus. But before we get started, we have two very special guests with us today. First of all, we have Lyndon Eisenberger with us.
What's up, y'all?
I'm going to add in the clapping noise because I no longer have to press the button. Yeah, Chris is behind the camera. We're doing a new setup today. But before we get to our second special guest, this is the Gen Free podcast where we talk about Jesus, and it's a student-led podcast focused on finding God's freedom in our everyday lives and our passions and our love for God. But without further ado, our second special guest is Caleb Sevick. Oh, yeah.
It's Sevick. I'm sorry to
say.
Sevick. You got it right. You just emphasize. Most people do it, honestly. Yeah. So you're honestly just falling in line with most people. So you're not the odd one out. So you don't have anything to worry about.
I learn something new every single day. But yeah, how are you guys doing today?
I'm good.
Doing pretty good.
Had a good day at work, so that was good.
That's always good. Yeah. I was at home and then made a Walmart run for Faith Like Birds. So, but yeah, I was looking at Legos, but yeah, we'll get right into it. My opening question is, how did you guys get introduced to video games and gaming?
You want to go or me?
Well,
all right. Well, I guess I'll start then.
Whatever.
I guess my earliest exposure to video games is, I don't know. I guess I think of like having like a Game Boy Advance when I was like under 5 years old. Maybe under 5. Who knows, really?
I still play some of those games on the Switch.
yeah, and man, like in like the DS Lite, like how Nintendo worked with having like the DS Lite, then having the Game Boy cartridge, just the backwards compatibility was just unmatched with that. And even when the 3DS came out, it's the same cartridge you played all the other stuff on. It was awesome. But yeah, no, I think being around. Like I had like an original Xbox that I played no good games on. Oh my goodness. Looking back at that, like Halo Combat Evolved, Halo 2, and oh my gosh, I'm forgetting one of the other ones, but like it was like the console of back then. And then I played like Shrek 2 on it. Like I was like, like 7 years old or whatever. Yeah. So I played that with my dad. I remember playing like Need for Speed Hot Pursuit on like a computer, like on like keyboard controls. Mm-hmm. You're like driving a car, like it just is awful. But and then like my friends, I played with them different things as well, and I got like eventually like introduced into like other, I guess, more mature video games like Halo 3 and stuff like that. But yeah, that was probably my first experience, was like the original Xbox and the Game Boy Advance.
Yeah. I remember my first experience with video games.
which was not on my parents' decision because my my grandmother, when my parents were away on a
the
trip.
best, bro.
Oh, dude, she got us a Nintendo Wii with 2 games, Mario Kart Wii and Super Mario Galaxy.
Those are classics. Except the
couldn't
bikes
stop from
on
there.
Mario Kart. I can't stand the bike. I mean, what is this? Mario bike? It's Mario Kart.
I love Mario Kart so much. But Super Mario Galaxy is still in my top 3 games.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic.
That game is so good.
Oh my gosh.
Nintendo just knocks it out of the park with like all their games. It makes me sad that they aren't just a game developer and that they make their own consoles, so then you're forced to buy their consoles as well. So,
I love their consoles. I love my Switch so much.
It's
so
fun.
much fun.
It's cool. I just wish I could play at 60 frames per second. That's all.
Yeah.
That's like, oh my gosh. If you don't know even what that means, that sounds so dorky, but
It does.
yeah.
It does. How about you, Lyndon?
To be honest, I can't even remember when I started playing video games.
Yeah.
But I think maybe it was like back when Minecraft came out on the Xbox 360.
Yep.
Dude,
Yeah.
those were the good days, bro.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, man. I remember like playing with my brother on the Xbox 360. Just, oh my gosh, man. The things I did to villagers back in the day, bro. Oh my gosh. I would be on so many wanted lists.
Yeah, man. Dude, totally.
Like, I don't know what came over me like when I was a kid, but like I would always just have the overwhelming urge to blow up villages and set villages on fire with lava.
Okay.
I don't know why I did that, but apparently a lot of other kids do it too. So
I think I did too. I think I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I'm the only one that had a soft heart here as a kid because I never did that.
Dude, I used to build like TNT cannons and just launch TNT as far as I could.
Gosh, it's like those memes where it's like you're in a job interview and then all of a sudden they start playing your Xbox Live chats. You're like, oh no, not my pre-Christ Xbox Live chats.
There was nothing like Xbox live chats. It would get insane. But one question I do have for you guys is, when did you begin to? Alexa just interrupted us.
I don't like Alexa. I don't like how it's always listening. It's not listening unless you say Alexa. How is it listening for Alexa? Okay,
honestly,
yeah.
I don't like this thing. I mean,
Well, I mean,
I carry a phone around. Like, obviously, I'm mic'd up either way.
Yeah.
But like, why am I adding another
has to be
direct line to
listening.
Jeff Bezos himself?
Yeah.
Like,
It's just all of them are plugged into his house.
Oh man, it's like that one Santa. What was it? Polar Express, I think, when Santa has like all the screens lined up.
Oh, yeah.
my gosh,
I haven't watched that movie forever.
that's a good movie. That's a really good movie.
But my question for you guys is, how does your passion for gaming play into your walk with Christ?
yeah, I guess I'll go first here. So like, gaming to me is kind of like 2 different areas. It's like I grew up playing games. And like, I guess I was always competitive about it, and like, I don't know. I guess I when I was like 13, 14, I made like a Minecraft YouTube channel, which
Sweet.
this is back in like 2013 when like let me tell you, if I would have stuck with that, I might have actually gotten big because I was getting some thousands of views on some of my videos, but I don't think that would have been good for me anyway. But yeah, it's. Oh my gosh, I lost my train of thought. But
No, you're good.
what were we talking about again? You're talking
about how our passion for gaming plays into
yeah,
our walk with
right.
Christ.
Yeah, so like even from the beginning, like I was making these like competitive game channel. Like I was on my channel, I make it like competitive and like really trying to like play, just different like on different servers or different things, like doing competitive stuff. So like I had that since the beginning of I enjoy like hanging out with friends, and I would play like Call of Duty like with friends and have a more casual side to it. But what I really enjoyed was like getting good at something, and I think that's something that I didn't understand like at the time much. But I think it's really just like how people like to get good at sports. Mm-hmm. But then I liked video games because of how much of a level playing field it is. I'm not like a big guy, right? Like I'm not even like I played golf in high school, and like even in that, like that was technical and good, but I was still like driving the ball like only 200 yards, which. It's you're normally driving like 260 yards, when I was like a freshman, sophomore, and it took me to get bigger to be somewhat competitive. But yeah, I just love like the level playing field with it, and that's what's kind of led me recently to these last couple of years. I've loved like racing, And both obviously in like the simulator and in gaming there, it's balanced. But even in real life, it's, you're all in the same car.
Yeah.
It's you're not physically, challenged or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Lyndon?
What's the question? Sorry.
No, you're good. How does your passion for gaming play into your walk with Christ? Yeah. I'll just go off of what Caleb. No, you're good. I'll just play off what Caleb said while you think. Definitely. It began as like just like a hobby, and then it became more of a passion as I got older, especially as I got into, because I'm more of a single player gamer. I don't play too many online games besides like Smash Bros. Or Splatoon. But I definitely would get really good at like the 3D Marios, because I remember I got into speedrunning Super Mario Odyssey and got my time under an hour and a half, and I was like, that's pretty awesome. And to where I could just beat that game as fast as I possibly could and just push myself to just get lower and lower times. But it became, like with my story, it became like an escape from what I was going through. I talked about this a little last night, but it became like an escape from what I was dealing with in my own life, to where I was trying to get away from it and pursue these other worlds, whether it be through movies, TV shows, or gaming. But as I got older and progressed through my walk with Christ, it then became a time where I got to spend time with Him through doing what I love. For example, I would throw on worship music and just sit and just talk to Him while I just play through different games and see how like different games I would be able to make connections to like the Bible. Recently I've been playing through different Legend of Zelda games and have been having worship music on the whole time, and it's become a way to just spend time with Him through doing like what I love, rather than it just being a hobby where some people would see it as a waste of time, which that is another one of my questions. Do you think there's still a stigma around gaming as much as there used to be? Because for me, I could see both sides, because there's still definitely like a sort of stigma around gaming, but I think with how much it's just progressed, it is the biggest source of because it's gaming makes much more money than Hollywood or any of these other types of different sources, and it's just like the biggest market on earth. And so I think there's still a little bit of a stigma surrounding it in like calling people nerds that play different games, but I began to see it more as a way to just spend time with God in doing what I love, and experiencing different stories and ways to play games that way.
Yeah, and this is a little bit, I guess, off topic on just something you said I just kind of wanted to touch on, but you mentioned like how it's such a big area, like even bigger than Hollywood. And you look at all these numbers of like how much money these like companies are making and everything, you're like, wow, this is like unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
But, like you would think that like Star Wars and Marvel are like the biggest things in the world.
Yeah.
But like actually like being able to play like a role-playing video game and, massively multiplayer online games or competitive esports games, you would think that wouldn't be the case, but I think like the real psychological reason for that is because like especially us as men and boys, like we have a desire for a sense of adventure and a sense of like purpose to be like, like a dragon slayer or whatever.
Dude, totally.
And we see that throughout history of like, I think that's really what God's purpose is for us really is to like, at least in this fallen world of like, to fight for Him and to like have really cool, I don't want to say like conquests, but like to fight righteously for Him and be on like epic adventures. Like, and I think that's kind of like been His plan since the beginning. So from that, we have like these peace times where, of course, that's why like a lot of men, like want to go into like the military and stuff to have cool careers there, but it becomes even more enticing to be like, well, why would I want to do that when I can, kind of live in this fantasy land of this, which in some regards it's kind of cool, but on the other hand, it is kind of sad. That's where you kind of get into the time waster part of it, of you kind of get into like, it's a false sense of accomplishment, right? Like you're completing tasks and quests and games, and you're kind of like, you can get like the dopamine like progression, but without like accomplishing real things. And so that's kind of where you get into the danger of like, just kind of like where we're headed in this world of like a dystopian future of, everyone living in a headset or living in, Sword Art Online, if you know that show. So,
yeah. Yeah, I can definitely see that point. I mean, like, my mind immediately goes to The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, which is, for those, I love it so much. For those listening, it's a completely open world game where you could go anywhere and just fight different monsters and get to the end and basically do whatever you want. And that game, especially since it's in my top 3, it sticks with me because of how much of a sense of adventure I got from it. And I realized my enjoyment of exploring and finding something new in the world, which then led me to actively start going on different adventures like outside and just taking hikes and looking at God's creation as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's a healthy way and there's an unhealthy way to do everything. I mean, like kind of like Ecclesiastes 3, like there's a time for this and a time for that. Like there's a time to live, there's a time to die. It goes through like the whole list of just everything. You can do everything healthily, or you can, all things are lawful, but not all things are helpful. Yeah. And that's why you can have to have discernment on realizing like, is this something that's healthy or is it not for me?
Yeah, and I think discernment in like being a Christian as a gamer is like very important, especially as it comes to like certain games and whether we play them or whether we don't, and what we consume and choose to shy away from. How do you guys feel in discerning like different mature games? I for the most part am able to play games that are more mature, but there are definitely some games where I have to trust my convictions and choose not to play them.
Yeah.
I'm able to play like we'll bleep it out because we're not really gonna mention GTA. I'll bleep it out in the edit. But
really, I was gonna mention it.
Yeah, I played it like for 10-15 hours, and then it just fell off, and I had to drop it. And so different games do that for me, and I feel like some are okay to play and some are not, and I really just have to trust my walk with God, because I mean, some people I feel like as we progress in our walk with God, some people are going to be at different parts where they'll say that's okay for me or that's not okay for me. And how do you guys feel about that topic on discernment in gaming?
I guess I want to give Lyndon a chance to answer, but I mean, I definitely can speak on it. Yeah, you go ahead though.
Yeah, there's definitely a point where like it can get to like more of an addiction and is something that's unhealthy. And a lot of the games I've noticed that I used to play back in the day were definitely just not healthy and not getting me anywhere in life. Just having a level of discernment and being able to know when a game is like taking over your life more than you're living your actual life, and just like having that discernment is really good. But did I answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll say though that like I've gone through the exact same thing, and like unfortunately, like I know we'll have to bleep it or whatever, but like Grand Theft Auto was like a big turning point for me in terms of like gaming, because that game came out and I really wanted to get it, and my parents were like, no, you're not getting that.
Yeah.
And I was telling them, I was like, listen, I'll just play the online parts. I don't want to play the like, you know, the graphic stuff and the actual thing. I mean, I was willing for that, but also I did want to play the that stuff with it. But it was brutal because there's like a missing out thing, because of a bunch of your friends are playing, especially like an online game.
Yeah.
And then you're not able to play with them because of it being like a game like that. It's brutal. And eventually I did play it. And I'd say that I had a lot of good experiences with it by playing with friends. But, you know, there was also the bad with it too. And I mean, my parents they were right about it, you know, wanting to protect me from that. It just was also hard for them to explain why. And that's kind of something, you know, just as like technology has developed with them, it's hard for them to like want, you know, like even like, I feel like I would be able to really well explain, thank God, like to my kid that I hope to have one day, like, you know, why we want to play something, why we didn't, because of just like really godly values. And my parents did absolutely the best they could. But it kind of came down to like, because it's not good for you. I'm like, well, why? And like, I wanted to understand more. But yeah, I mean, like, I played that growing up and I enjoyed it. But I mean, I saw that trailer for the new one. I turned that trailer off halfway through. And I'm sure you know exactly why I turned that off. Like, I just can't. I cannot drink of the cup of the Lord and the cup of demons, right? Like, and that's the thing that I love about growing close with God is there's so many people that, like, the biggest fear of some people is they're like, man, I don't want to give up like these things. And there's so many parables and things that you could talk about that with, but it's,
I think it's Matthew 6:24 where it says, you cannot serve two masters.
I don't know and that's the parable of the young ruler with like all the riches, and Christians will take that verse into saying that like we should, you know, like money is bad, which I don't think is. I think you always have to look at like what is Jesus's point in this parable, not taking every individual point and using that as, even though it is gospel, like that part as the point of it. Yeah. Because like, what was the point of him telling that parable? Because if we said, oh, money's bad, well then we're all these proverbs about like, you know, a good man leaving an inheritance to his grandchildren, and like parable of talents and like stewarding things well. So, but yeah, it's, we go to like the games and like, as you people want to, they're afraid of like what they're gonna have to give up. But like, I hate it when we get to that, because I actually think that's a lie from the enemy, because it's not about what you have to give up. You like, actually, if you are going to like grow close to Christ, you won't want, like, you will not have to give up something until you actually want to some degree. And that's a little bit of an oversimplification, and some people I know will get really mad at me for saying that, quite, because it is hard, but you'll want to do it. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Like, your flesh will obviously always still, like, say no, but as your spirit, like, Romans 7, at the end of Romans 7, that's, like, the biggest chapter on saying, like, we're just kind of stuck in our sin. But at the end of it says, but you can, like, choose to live in the flesh or to live in the spirit. Yeah, so totally. Your spirit will actually want to deny that, so you'll want to, like, fight it and then give up those things. Like, we can't be obsessed over, you know, when I'm going to have to give up, because obviously that's a sign of, like, you know, you're just not close to Christ yet. Yeah. But like, if that's what's keeping you from it, that is what Jesus warns of the rich young ruler of. You're caring more about him than me, and maybe you need to be brought to a low enough place to where you really realize your need for him and you're actually trusting him fully instead of trusting in like what you already believe and are comforted by.
Yeah, that's really good, Caleb. My my parents were they were pretty wary on like what I played and what I didn't play. I was always a Nintendo kid. I never really I didn't have a PlayStation until I got older, and I only had an Xbox 360 with a Kinect and Plants vs. Zombies. But I never really got to play more of the mature games until I got older. And even then, I wasn't in my walk with God to consume some things.
Yeah, and there's a different level to the different mature games, right? Yeah. Like, you know, in case you don't know, there's different ratings to the games. It's E, which is like 6 and up or something. Yeah. E10 plus, T mature. First of all, that's a guideline, just like movies. parents, you should like actually dig into the games and do research. I know it's a pain, but like if it's something your child is going to be like really delving into,
it's important,
especially when your child is in a developmental stage where like they're literally wiring their brain for how dopamine works, for how like different response systems work. You know, you should. I encourage you to take the diligence in that. Not that I'm a parent yet, and I know you're having, you know, many more responsibilities, and you're much busier than I can comprehend right now because I haven't done it yet. But it's, you know, if your kid's going to be spending, you know, extended amount of time, you know, responsibly on it that you allow, you should definitely know what's in them. And so, like, that's, for instance, to me, you know, games made by, like, Rockstar are very different than, like, playing Call of Duty or Halo, right? Or especially like other, when you're not playing like the campaign, then you're taking like all of it out of it. You're just playing like chess is effectively what you're playing. There's not a story to it. There's not like a complex narrative like a movie would have that you might have to worry about. You're playing like a sport at that point. And I would definitely love to talk about that, just like with my experience in esports and how I got into that in high school and college and post-college. But there's different levels to it. And that's why, like, as a kid, my parents had no problem even at, like, me at, like, 13 playing, like, Call of Duty because, I mean, my dad was military. You're playing as Navy SEALs, you know, fighting against, you know, like, terrorists and things. And it's, you know, in the concept of knowing that it's fake and, you know, still wanting to fight for righteousness. Like, my dad didn't even want me to play for, like, as the bad guys, shooting, like, the good guys, even though you don't, like, that's not the purpose of it. It's just you get thrown on a team and you're like, whatever. But that was also just like partner with like why they didn't want me playing online with strangers for a while. I think my thoughts of that are, I mean, it's definitely, that's probably the biggest danger online really is just like predators and different things you can hear and be influenced by. It's like going to public school on there, except not just public school. You're going to public school with a bunch of 35-year-olds on there as well. So it's like worse that it can be on there. So I love online games, but when you're a kid, like you definitely need to have to be protected.
For because one of my later questions is like, what would you say to like to those who would like want to get into gaming or as a parent like knowing which games to have your kids play and which aren't in which they shouldn't play,
like starting at a young age?
I like I said this to Brian the other day. I think Nintendo is great.
Oh yeah, definitely. 100%, like
Mario
for
good like kids and stuff.
Definitely.
I think Nintendo is probably my favorite game publisher, just because one, they have some of my favorite IPs,
that's an intellectual
property. I was debating with myself whether or not
I was just thinking, I was like,
it.
I bet 2% of people know what an IP is.
Yeah, but intellectual property is like Mario or like Zelda.
Or even Star Wars. That's an intellectual property. That's all that, I mean, like Disney, when they bought Star Wars, sure, they bought the rights to all the previous movies and all that stuff, and they make money off that. The main thing was just the right to make the stuff.
Yeah, the right to make more. But I'd say for those listening and like wanting to get into gaming as a Christian or looking to know which games to allow like your kids to play or not, I'd say Nintendo's great, and they have so many different family games that you can turn to. But
as a kid, I would definitely agree when you're just trying to, entertain your kid and have something to play with them with. I mean, I guess it would be awesome for them to, be more interested in like reading books and stuff. But I also actually do think that there can be some value in like fine motor skills with like being competent on games and stuff. I think there can be some benefits to that too, so that they're, more well-rounded than not having ever played something.
I remember in middle school, I did a project on, because someone said to me something about how like gaming isn't like productive at all. And so I started it because I did, and then later in English, I did a project on benefits of playing games, and I definitely from a young age was able to like understand like problem solving and like different ways of figuring out puzzles and always figuring out workarounds and building like my work ethic to like figure out something from gaming and playing different games like puzzle games and actually like building my comprehension like you said.
And it's all like not all things are created equal, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm telling you, like with my kids, like I'm definitely going to encourage them on like the games that are like actually helping and like are and to be honest, there are the games that are more brain rot, right? Like I know like people are against that, but like now playing Cookie Clicker or playing a bunch of like these like random mobile games, like it is brain rotting. It's like it's not maybe not like technically, but like it's not really that helpful either, you know. So there's games that are beneficial and there are games that are not. And again, that's kind of like looking into protecting your kids, and then also like, so this isn't necessarily the case when you're like looking at just like your kids, but like especially when you're getting into like the tween years and like teenage years, like you can kind of look at like what your purpose is of playing a game. Like you can have games that are narrative stories like Legend of Zelda that are awesome and that can be good, like just to play and have a sense of adventure, which is really cool. And I think can actually be really inspiring for kids, like young men that want to be like adventurers and things. But then my favorite thing is like, like how can I play a game to get good at it, do it for the glory of God, and just like golf or just like football or just like basketball or whatever, like get good at it. I'd say the only negatives to it is you're not being physically active to it, so you're gonna have to supplement that otherwise, and you might be like looking at a screen pretty close to your face. But yeah, like I want to encourage people to like make careers out of it, right? So I'm like, man, like looking at all like the professional like race car drivers or whatever, like they're go-karting when they're like 6 years old. And they're becoming like world champions by the time they're 16, and they're going into real race cars. The esports champions, that's where it gets a little bit more like hard, because you're like looking at them, you're like, man, these kids are like looking at a screen for like 8 hours a day. Like that is harder. That's really taxing. And so like it's hard, but they're looking at a game and they're like working hard at it, and they're like Kobe Bryant at it. They're like, I'm taking this really seriously. I'm trying to get good at it. And now you have, people making, 6 figures, multi-million-dollar contracts playing these games, and it's a really cool opportunity.
Yeah, that's something that we didn't really like see until like 20 years ago. Like being able to like build a career off of
20 years ago that's a lot too. I'd say even 10 years ago it was hard. That was like right when it was exploding.
I was just thinking like 20 years ago because of like the Melee scene. Super Smash Brothers Melee. There's a documentary out about it that is really good. It's about like this scene of a game that came out like 10 years before this point. And there was just this underground scene of people that loved playing this game competitively, and then it just grew and grew from just these people supporting it, and then they finally got it to like Evo or like bigger tournaments.
The smell stayed the same though.
Stayed the same. It didn't smell great. But I'd recommend it. It's a good watch. But yeah, being able to build a career off of our passions is something that is just becoming more and more available now. Like for example, there was a guy I know, because I used to during lunch go up to my favorite teacher's room, and next door was the gaming club where some kids would come and play video games during lunch. And one kid got a full ride to a college for playing video games. Wow. It's crazy.
It's actually possible now. It's wild.
Yeah. And so being able to build a career off of what we love doing in playing video games is really interesting. But like you said, it's very important to supplement it with other things throughout your day rather than just spending like 8 hours on a game. So I'd say like physical exercise. It's up there, man, and it's so beneficial for you as well.
And that's something we're finding in esports as well. Is like a lot of people are like, in the early stages of esports, like they're eating like crap. They're not very athletic, right? Yeah. What we're finding is like it's just like any mental sport, and you want to be, like physically healthy, and you want to be like eating right, so you can have the best reaction time possible, so you can have the best memory possible for it. And so they take it really seriously, and they have like professional chefs and stuff that work there. That for the esports players. But something I wanted to cover as well, just briefly, is like the reason that makes it like it might be like really hard to comprehend, like how are you gonna go to a college full ride for playing video games? Like where's the money come from that? But what I'll say is I was actually an esports coach for 2 years at York College, where I was in a paid position there. So clearly they were funding me for that and funding the program. And it's really just down to like, you get people to come to a college like because of a program. Well, you're making like money and tuition off them like very well, like very easily. So like to have a program is like a no brainer because like if kids are interested in it, and then to like get full rides and stuff, it's like, well, there's scholarship. I mean, there's prize money, and there's so much advertising for the universities. Like it's in the collegiate scene, it's super like it makes total sense. It's just like normal sports, and then the professional scene, it ends up just being I mean, we talked about this as a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's advertising for the companies. Like the companies put on a lot of money for this, and the teams themselves have sponsorships. So it's just like it just makes sense for it. So it's actually it's not a scam or anything. Like it really just makes money, just like how collegiate sports does, and just like how professional sports do.
And I feel like that's a lot of the reason why it's so like it can be so addicting. Like compared to normal sports, like physically you push your body to its limits to exceed others in your sport. But with like with like esports and stuff, when you're doing that, it's easy to get like roped into it because it's easier to just make up this like character that you are like in that game, and then just like because it's not physically it's not doing anything for you, and it's just easier to make yourself like into something you're not, which is not good.
Yeah, that's like what I was saying earlier about when I was at my lowest, I used gaming for escape. Yeah. And it wasn't healthy. And I would just escape to a place that I thought was better than just to hide like the pain I was going through. But it's the balance of moderation with other things. And when I was writing these questions, I didn't even think about like the mobile gaming scene because that's something I don't really like.
It's
play.
huge, and I'll tell you the reason it's huge is because we have so many like second and third world countries. Where the most powerful computer that a household might have might be a smartphone. So like that is the source of like gaming that like a kid has. Not to mention, smartphones, even like an older one, is pretty powerful. Like you can play PUBG Mobile on that. You can play Clash Royale on that. Like there's still a lot of you can play. Gosh, I forgot about that. There's
Fortnite Mobile.
There's Call of Duty Mobile. It's that's why it's because it's so accessible to every person. You don't need to have. It's like there's the PC market, which is like the highest threshold, even though it's like you can get into PC stuff without it being too much higher than consoles, and I think consoles are like a little bit of a scam. I won't go into that, but just with how you have to pay monthly or yearly to play online in a lot of games, when you don't have that on a PC, and that's just the premium you're paying, Sony or PlayStation. Nintendo is a little bit different, but and then below that, it's like the same thing again. Well, if you don't have, $400, $300 on a console, well then, you just have your phone that you already have, and so it's really accessible.
Yeah, I think like with mobile, we've definitely seen like a shift as it comes to like this latest generation of like games, because like the amount of ads and like how games have changed like fit like our brain and like getting dopamine from them, because like just little small games that then like are a small reward and then get their money from like ads and stuff.
And that's it's such a terrible system, because like, man, 20 years ago when a game came out, like there was no patch for it. If there was a bug in the game, that was going to be there forever. So first of all,
I think of like Super Mario 64 with the backwards long jumping upstairs to throw yourself to the end of the game.
That's fun though.
It is fun.
That's good. But like, and it actually, from a business perspective, and I mean, I do come from a business background. Like, it's made companies so much lazier because they can just update the games and they can release half-baked products with the same title, and it seems like the same thing. Call of Duty, and it just is the same thing every year. And I love Call of Duty. I played it collegiately. I led a team at college. Like, that was my first experience that then gave me the experience to be hired for it. And I love it. It's just, it's run by Activision and corporate overlords. And there's a reason. I mean, look, there's a reason EA Sports is not to like try to like just blaspheme people for the sake of it, but like they have been consistently voted like worst company in the world because, which is funny that like a video game company
the video game
would be the worst.
guys.
It's like not like some people like, you know, like some oil company or some like people like mining lithium or something like literally like because like gamers will actually complain about it, I guess. We're very good
probably
at
be the most
to
vocal
report
online.
things. The most vocal online about it. It's crazy.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think about like we used to on mobile used to get like when I was a kid in like my teen years, you used to get like actual like full games on mobile with like Angry Birds or like Cut the Rope, where there'd be like full length games to be able to play rather than just like randomly generated levels.
And we just you're right about the randomly generated stuff. It gets so much easier to just like do. It's not a passion project anymore. There's not many people at that, and that's why like there are a couple game companies that I love the most, like smaller company or like smaller publishers. It's not even indie companies, but like there are other companies too. Like the biggest two, like they're very big games. Is Escape from Tarkov, which is like an M-rated like military sim, which is really fun. I really like that game. And like iRacing is the simulator that I play on, right? They're not owned by anyone. Like they're owned by their own smaller company and they do whatever they want. And that control they have and the passion they have, it reminds me of like, you know, kind of like Nintendo, how they care, or these other companies, you know, like 20 years ago when they were kind of still back at their roots and it wasn't, you know, owned by stockholders and things. So,
But I do think there's a change happening in gaming, especially with like the latest Call of Duty and like how badly it was like seen, whether it be from the story perspective and it just being the same as last year's. I think we're seeing a shift in back to originality, especially with like how available like indie games and like the materials they have now to make video
There's
games.
a lot of great small publishers, absolutely. Yeah, indie game market is really good.
Yeah, I actually saw a team working on a Bible video game.
We'll see how that goes. I don't know, like
I
feel like there's gonna be a lot of stuff in there where I'm like, well, that's not biblical, or I'm gonna be like, I don't know, it might be interesting. Who knows? Who knows how it'll be? But yeah, it sounds, and I mean, it seems like a good entry though. Just people being exposed to the gospel.
I think the way we tell stories in games is so different to how we tell them in movies or shows, which is why like there's a certain game that I won't bring up, but with how the story is told and like how it uses like who you play as to like change your perspective on the narrative is very interesting and compelling. And I think, well, I mean, God is a creator, and I think he obviously put that in us as well, and we love to create. And I think one of my favorite things to do with gaming is see like biblical like connections with certain games, and just see God in these games that people wouldn't think to look for.
Because all creation shouts God praise, even if these creators didn't intend on making something. It's like, well, they're still using God's puzzle pieces, so you know, there's going to be some signs of it, probably almost no matter what.
I love gaming so much, and looking for God in those places, and in just talking to Him in the quiet place. About my love for video games and my passion surrounding it has been so much fun. But another question I have for you guys is, have you ever gotten to share the gospel through your interest in gaming? Because like for me, I don't really play much on voice chat or like talk to people.
Voice over IP. Ever heard of VoIP? That's what that means. There's your little bit of nerd knowledge. Voice over IP. There you go. Yeah.
I've never gotten to share it over voice chat because I don't really play online games, but I've connected with people through like talking about video games, and have then gotten to talk about God with them after having that piece of connection with them through through gaming. So I was wondering if you guys had any experiences like that, of getting to share the gospel through video games.
Yeah, I haven't had many experiences like that, because usually most of the time I'm just playing with my friends and stuff, and we usually have the lobby chat off, because it gets pretty wild in there.
Used to be more wild.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't really have much experience with that. Like sometimes, just like saying, like I used to play with randoms like in games like Apex and Fortnite and stuff. And I used to like sometimes people would just feel like you could just tell like people were just kind of broken and stuff when they were talking and everything.
Yeah.
I was just like, yo, God loves you, man. And then they're like, usually they'll fight back and then they'll say some controversial stuff. And, but it's just, yeah, I don't know.
It's still awesome to see you get to do that, and even like planting that seed.
Trying to reach them in that place. Where they're trying to escape.
There's a ton of different contexts for it, right? Like you're meeting someone in Battle Royale on another opponent team, right? Yeah. You're going to talk to them for like 10 seconds while you're dancing on their body. Like that's not going to be very good evangelism opportunity, right? But someone's on your team or something, it can be really good opportunities. I thought that was funny. You
especially
mentioned,
like encouragement and stuff too.
Yeah, I thought that was funny. You mentioned like you can tell like people going through things, and like there's all these like videos on YouTube of like how kids of like like coped with the 2008 like financial crisis, and they're on like Modern Warfare 2, and they're just like completely like unhinged. It's just kind of funny. I didn't even know the 2008 financial crisis happened when it was happening, because like my parents, like they're so good to like I think that's a really important part of, not that I'm a parent, like this is like it's the best advice you give when you're not a parent yet. And you try to give parental advice, but like the fact that like my parents, like when you protect your kids and you don't give them like added anxieties over like things that they shouldn't be like having to worry about yet, especially when they're really little, I think it's a really cool protection. But but in terms of evangelism opportunities, so I really gave my life to the Lord when I was 19. I grew up Christian, but I didn't really even know what it meant to be born again, so like I was pretty lukewarm. But yeah, since then. And like as the Lord had like given me esports and kind of had developed in me, instead of it being like an addiction, like really like I say like supernaturally, like without even me needing to like try very hard, just like making it like me wanting to do it for the glory of Him instead of it being like for my own passionate desires and my former ignorance or from just like addiction or whatever. He really made it like me want to do it for Him. But from that, you still have like, it's literally like, you have like, I would say that video game rage is like the same as like road rage, where it's like people just like, it's so easy to get frustrated in the heat of the moment like that. Right. But as I've like come to know Christ, like I want to, so I was raised, one of the greatest seeds that was planted into me was Fellowship of Christian Athletes that I went to here at Central York High School. Some great people that encouraged me to go there. And I got encouraged there, and then I found, and that made me get involved in Fellowship of Christian Athletes at college at Westchester when I needed it and when I realized when I was like really coming to the Lord. And something they focus on there so much is performing for an audience of one, of saying like, Lord, just like Paul talked about in athletic games, he makes so many references to like an athlete competing for a prize and running the race to the end. Like I want to compete for you, Lord. And I think of like Colossians 3 in verse 17, it says in whatever you do, do it for the glory of God. And then Colossians 3 Colossians 3:23, it talks about, I might be messing up some of these references, but Colossians 3:23 definitely says, to work heartily as for the Lord and not for man. So like whatever I'm doing, I want to do it for the Lord. So that's where you realize like, okay, Lord, like I want to give up my selfish desires to perform well here because it's not about myself. It's about others. So if I have a moment where I explode and I discourage someone and I act of the enemy instead of you, this whole thing isn't worth it. And I'd rather burn this whole thing. Like I don't want to do it. And so that's something that you still, need your mind renewed on. And I'd say he's definitely renewed me in that, to not like flip out on people to like the degree of like calling them an idiot or whatever.
Yeah, that's something I've never really understood.
Yeah. And so this just comes from like the esports realm, or just from like the sports realm as well, is
Yeah.
that you get so hyper focused in like wanting to perform well, that when something disrupts that, especially when it's outside of your control, your natural like adrenaline inclination is to be like, what are you doing?
Just flip out.
And so that's something he's renewed me on as well, is I definitely don't like call anyone like an idiot or whatever, or like have arguments to that degree, but I will like for instance, like when I'm doing race car driving now on the simulator, it is, you're prepping, for the week to come, and then you're playing a race. There's only a race every 2 hours, right? You're doing qualifying and you're racing, and someone takes you out. I mean, that's a lot of prep. That's a lot of, you were racing already for 25 minutes and you're trying to get to the finish line, and then all that progress is gone because someone, like crashed into you, right?
Yeah.
So I definitely still like in the moment will have moments where I'm like, what do you, like, what was that? Like, what do you do? Like, and you're kind of angry. But like, he's also developing me so much to have grace on people in that moment. And I definitely, through those opportunities, and what's really cool about the simulation racing community is it's very different than other things I've experienced, is like, it's actually a lot of really chill people on there, because it's like, I think that just comes with it being a simulator and being like, hey, we want to like race for real. And it's not just like a game you just hop on, kind of nonchalantly. Like, you have to have like a simulator for it. And, and it's kind of cool.
It
how
has that
intentional.
barrier to entry.
Yeah, it's a barrier to entry, and like you get a lot more really cool, chill people on it. They're sorry, and so like some of them are, some of them aren't. They're more aggressive, and you kind of have to like, not fire with fire, but just kind of like douse them with like, kindness and the Holy Spirit. But there's been a lot of opportunities where I will, like, I got crashed into by a guy, and I was like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Listen, it's okay. I forgive you. I make mistakes too. Like, literally, and like sometimes most recently, like I'll have made a mistake. And I had a thing where the same guy in the next race, like 2 hours later, crashed into me again. I was like, Carlos, what are you doing? This guy felt so bad, and like, not because I was saying that. I mean, that was, but like, at least I hope not. But it was, I could tell, like, I feel bad too when I make mistakes into people. But I literally, like, immediately after, I was like, listen, it's okay, dude. I forgive you just as Christ has forgiven me. And I know that sounds like an extreme example on this stupid video game, right? But like, because he has forgiven me, I forgive you, and he's changed me so much, and you're able to evangelize in those things.
Yeah.
So that's probably the most recent opportunity I've had.
That's
with
so
it.
good, man. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm really glad that I never really was. I always had like grace around like not flipping out towards games. I mean, I 100%ed Cuphead. So,
oh man,
dude, we are the opposite kind of gamer, because like if it's a person, I want to beat that person. If it's like a game like that, I'm like, this is a trap. Like,
if
this is like, nah,
like
someone made this to frustrate me.
If it's just this
that.
insane, ridiculously high bar of a challenge, I'm very stubborn.
You probably
and
like
I
Mario
will do
Maker,
it.
huh?
Yes, I do like Mario Maker.
Donkey's videos, even though they have some profanity in them, and I wish Donkey didn't have that, his videos are fantastic on that.
Yeah, I've watched some Mario Kaizo, and it gets ridiculous. But I've always had like this grace around like really high bars and like challenging myself.
Yeah.
I mean even speedrunning Mario Odyssey. I don't even know what it is, because even from like a young age, I 100%ed Super Mario 3D World, and at the end there's a ridiculously high like challenge level at the end, and it took me like a month, but I did it, and I was so happy about it. And of course, it seems like a small accomplishment to somebody from the outside, but it meant so much to me, and I. Because of just where I was at that point, and even like taking breaks from like my life, and being able to just focus on this, I can see like where God had His hand over me in that time, in giving me that outlet, and so I think that's something that we've been able to touch on, is using our outlets like towards like a goal in gaming, which is something that people from an outside perspective wouldn't really think about, especially with like esports, as you were saying. Now that we're seeing like careers be born out of gaming.
Yeah.
So I think gaming is just awesome, and I love it. And so yeah, I just want to thank you guys for coming on and being a part of this podcast.
Thank you.
Of course, I know we only scratched the surface on some of the areas of it. It's a whole realm, but yeah, it's really cool just how, you know, we can encounter the Lord with a variety of types of things.
Yeah.
And just as things develop, you know, generationally as we get older, and as things, you know, progress technologically, and see how the Lord takes even what the enemy meant for evil and turns it for good.
Yeah.
In these kind of areas. So.
Yeah. Would one of you want to close out in prayer?
Yeah, I definitely can.
Cool. Sounds good.
Dear Lord, thank you so much for just giving Lyndon, Sawyer, and I this opportunity to just to talk about, you know, like a passion of ours, Lord, and just like, I think it's so cool to be able to talk about it, like as we've like maybe like before Christ, and then as it's like you've developed us in it and said like, hey, like this is something that like I was there, like that was there like in you even before like you knew that I was there, Lord. So we just thank you so much for the opportunity to converse, Lord, and to just talk just for the glory of you. And I just pray that as we go forward in gaming and in just our walks, Lord, that we would just be able to see you in everything, Lord, that we wouldn't do things for our own self, but that we would do it just for your glory. And yeah, I just thank you, Lord, for this conversation. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Caleb, where can they find you?
Yeah, so I recently made it was kind of like a Star Wars anime, kind of like other media's like YouTube channel. And you can find that, and I post the same videos on my Instagram, and that's just at Caleb Sevick, CalebSevick on Instagram, and then that has a link to my YouTube channel as well that I newly made, and I'm excited to make more content, just show how Christ can be in media like Star Wars and video games and stuff like that. So
I think that's really awesome, because that's something I'm interested in. So audience, I would just encourage you, go check out Caleb and go check out everything he makes. And, but I just want to thank you both again for coming on and being a part of this. But yeah, audience, make sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you know when, we post, anything, whether it be a reel from Brian, a testimony video, or a new podcast on, Wednesdays. But I really hope this podcast just blessed you, and have a great rest of your night.